Fine work of our next guest. His name is Dave Weinberg. He puts up an extra points column on 97.3 ESPN, and even he is on the same path as me, as it's a great time of year for local sports fans, David.
Yeah, absolutely, Pete. I mean, this is these next 3 weeks are as good as it gets if you're a fan of, whatever, high school basketball, wrestling. You got the MAC tournament coming in town in a couple weeks, and a pretty good professional boxing card next weekend as well, plus the state wrestling championship. So it's a pretty fun time of year now.
Now, you and I, we're not like on the national program right now where we have the rundown next to us, but you pretty much just laid out everything we're going to talk about.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's perfect. That's good. That's a nice little reference for me. Let's start with that the two Cal finals today, and your thoughts on the teams that are in there. Atlanta Chi is going to take on Mainland in the girls' game, and then Wildwood Catholic St. Augustine. I mean, come on, that's must-see basketball. But start on the girls' side, and those two teams playing each other, and just some of the thoughts that jump out at you about Atlantic City facing Mainland.
That's going to be a really good game, Pete. I think I'm happy for Atlantic City. They've been they've been right on the cusp for all season, kind of losing some tough games, but they finally broke through in the Cal tournament. This is their first ever appearance in the final, so it's kind of exciting time for the Vikings. I'm really glad to see them get their hard work rewarded. And everybody knows about Mainland as far as Kylie Watson is concerned. I was surprised that they haven't won this in a few years. It seems like they're there every year, but this will be a really competitive game, I think, and that's going to be exciting. As far as the boys are concerned, everybody knows that Wildwood Catholic put a thumping on St. Augustine during the regular season, beat them by like 40. So St. Augustine's out for revenge, and Wildwood Catholic, I think they kind of want to. They need a win to kind of like reestablish their momentum a little bit and their confidence, because they've suffered some tough losses also, and I think they need a little bit of confidence going into the state tournament.
Why, in your opinion, has Wildwood Catholic been able to attract the talent that they get and been able to succeed the way they have? I mean, that is not a big school, Dave.
No, they're not. Very small school, actually. From what I understand, there might be only like 20 people in the freshman class, I think, this year. So, they were in danger of closing, as what happened to Sacred Heart a few years ago, but added a kindergarten through eighth grade school there, and that was able to sustain them and to keep them open. I guess it's just maybe it is the quaintness that kind of attracts some people. You're not kind of lost in the shuffle. You're going to be the center of attention there if you go there. And a lot of credit goes to Dave DeWeese, or I guess criticism, depending on your viewpoints on non-public schools. But regardless, they've been able to lure some of the top players in the area to go there, and it'd be interesting to see if they can make it work in the state playoffs.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, West Virginia recruit Taj Thweet and a Temple recruit Jaleel White, but then Jacob Hopping has been a key player for them as well. And I always call Dave DeWeese the judge. Talk to the judge, Dave DeWeese. I mean, first of all, he's kind of the John Calipari of the local high school coaches, right? I mean, his hair is always on point. He's always well dressed and impeccably groomed, and he's a heck of a basketball coach to boot.
I guess it's probably the profession that he's in. He probably didn't have enough time to change into sweats and stuff when he goes from the bench to the court. But now that he's retired, I guess he just wants to keep that tradition going. Yeah, he is kind of a dapper Dan, if you will, and a terrific coach as well. It's one thing to get the talent to play there, but like with Paul Rodeo, it's another to be able to make it work, to make all the different parts come together and mesh, and he's done a great job of that.
Yeah, and you touched on that. I mean, if you're going to give Dave DeWeese praise in the job that he's done, Paul Rodeo, year after year, continues to rack up the wins, continues to, have them play the system, have them play the Hermit way. I mean, that only comes with longevity and success.
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking about one of the most successful coaches in the state, and we're fortunate enough to have a few of those guys. And now you have Tom Paracco back at Middle Township after a few years off, and he's another one who is right up there as far as career victories are concerned. And Gene Allen does as good a job as anybody at Atlantic City, and in many ways, maybe even a better job considering what you're having to deal with when you get to Atlantic City. I mean, you basically have a lot of talent, but you have a very demanding fan base. You have some off-the-school issues that you might have to deal with on occasion. So the fact that Gene is able to make that work year after year is also a credit to him.
No doubt. Dave Weinberg's with us. Read his Extra Point columns on our website, 973ESPN.com. Find him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg19. Now, it's not just basketball at this point, and that's the thing we touched on briefly too. The Region 8 tournament now, that's at EHT, and that's almost the preview or the warm-up to the big Boardwalk Hall weekend. And can you speak then to your experiences of region, it's district, region, Boardwalk Hall, correct?
Correct. You got it right. That's the right order.
Good. And for you, what that means for guys and girls now, you wrote about that, to get a chance to wrestle in Boardwalk Hall.
Yeah, this is the dream of every high school wrestler, to be able to get to Atlantic City and wrestle at Boardwalk Hall. For people who have never been there, I highly recommend that you check it out when it comes to town next week. It's one of the most unique sports events anywhere. Just the fact that you have New Jersey is known as one of the best high school wrestling states in the country. You're going to see guys who are Olympic caliber, potential Olympic caliber wrestlers perform. Some of the guys who are like the best in the country in their weight class, and it's just a tremendous event. I mean, the atmosphere is electric. The stands are usually almost always full. You're talking about, with 4 sessions, you're talking about maybe 40,000 people there, and people make the trek all the way from like Phillipsburg all the way down to fill their seats and watch their teams. They have a tremendous following, each team, each wrestler, and it's a really special event for them.
And I touched on it, but you write about it. Second year for girls divisions. Yeah,
it's fantastic. The state finally got in line with some of the other states last year and instituted a girls division. Previously it was there was a story actually in yesterday's paper, I guess, about this girl from North Carolina actually won the boys division state championship.
I saw that picture. Yeah.
Yeah, because they don't have a girls division, obviously, but this one does, and. There are 2 wrestlers, one from mainland and one from Lower Cape May, that qualified for the states this year. The biggest name is Joelle Klein from Lower Cape May. She finished 3rd in the state in her weight class last year, and she's back to she's kind of dominated everybody this season, and she's probably the heavy favorite to become the area's first state champion.
So Dave Weinberg's with us talking about all the great things that are happening in this area right around on this Leap Day, right? I mean, this is we only get one of these February 29th every 4 years. So February 29th, Leap Day, which means March Madness, and all the March things are right around the corner. And thank God, Dave Weinberg, postseason college basketball tournaments are going to come to the area again. Thank God. I love that the MAC is coming.
Yeah, me too. I'm right with you, Pete. I loved the Atlantic 10 when it was here. I thought it drew pretty well, especially when the Philadelphia schools were in the finals. I know that, they had some attendance problems, when you had some out of area schools make it. But still, I mean, to be able to have a Division I major college tournament here is just fantastic. I was really mad at the A-10 for leaving, and I'm really thankful that the MAC, was able to work out a deal with Boardwalk Hall, with CRDA, and everyone to bring that tournament for at least the next 3 years. From what I'm told, they're really, depending on how it goes, they're really encouraged, and they want to make this a long-term thing. So that's great to see, because you're right, college basketball, the tournament basketball, March Madness, that belongs in Boardwalk Hall.
I mean, there's no bad seat in the building. You've been in there plenty of times, too. And, yes, I remember when the Atlantic 10 tournament was around, and I remember when it left, and then I remember finding out from someone else that, it's pretty hard to beat 0. When another venue comes in and basically cuts the asking price or the bid that you had, and they undercut you, of course the Atlantic 10 is going to leave. 0 is 0. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, was it the Barclays Center that basically came in and said, look, we'll offer you this and we'll pay for you to come here? Okay. I mean, that when you get into the economics, it stinks, but I get it.
Yeah, it was the Barclays Center. You're right, Pete. And I kind of applaud the MAC though for they've been in search of a so-called destination site for a while, and that's one thing that I think maybe Atlantic City has over some of these other venues. I mean, Barclays obviously being in Brooklyn has a lot of amenities, but not a whole lot of hotels there.
Mm-hmm.
Not a lot to do right outside the arena. Whereas, Atlantic City, you have the boardwalk, you have the casinos, you have different things that people can go and visit between sessions. And the MAC they've been wanting to come here for a while, and I'm really glad they were able to work things out. They were in Albany, New York for I think 20 years, and I'm sure that venue did a great job of hosting it. But they've been on the lookout for more of a like an entertainment destination, if you will, and Atlantic City certainly fits that bill.
Right, and that Times Union Center is, as you point out, Siena College's home court. So now it'll truly be a neutral spot, and it's not just the men, it's the men and the women. And until I looked at your column, I had forgotten the Adrian Phillips Ballroom will be hosting something pretty important as well.
Right, the MAC's hosting their first ever esports competition championships. I think it's Friday and Saturday, and people probably, of a certain age, like you and I, we're probably not that into it. But I do remember covering an event at Caesars, I guess about 2-3 years ago,
mm-hmm.
and the room was packed. A lot of trash talking, a lot of cheering, a lot of booing, a lot of all kinds of stuff. And I was just blown away by the atmosphere in there. And as everyone probably knows by now, esports is probably the fastest growing sports segment in the country, if not the world. Stockton University has done a great job of developing their program. I think they actually won a national championship or an ECAC championship not too long ago. And they're going to have the interesting thing this weekend is they're going to have two stages, if you will, set up for the MAC, and then they're also going to have a third stage set up for a high school competition. There are some local high schools involved. I'm told, I'm not sure which ones, but the winners of that get to compete for a title in Disney World, so there's a big incentive there too.
I mean, I saw the story, and I'm sure you probably saw it too. It was like a Pennsylvania kid won some Fortnite championship, and then I think they held it at the Arthur Ashe Tennis Center, like outside last summer, and the kids was like 13 and won $1 million or something like that. Esports, yes, men of a certain age, that would be you and me, maybe aren't, we're not playing Fortnite or Halo, but we certainly recognize that it's growing. In fact, I just read an article, I believe it was even yesterday, about this Nerd Street Gamers and the ties that they have to South Jersey. Rob Johnson is from Margate, and people that cover the lifeguard races are swimming. Paige Funk, she's a Holy Spirit grad. She's doing their marketing. I mean, this stuff is everywhere.
Yeah, and I think George Miller, is heavily involved as well. He's a legendary rower from back in the day, and it's an interesting phenomenon. And I guess it's the more you can do to get more kids involved in things. I guess it's it's for the better. I mean, I personally think kids should be more involved in outside stuff and being active in and that kind of thing. But if you're a good enough gamer, then more power to you. And there's an avenue for everybody. I mean, I know there's even like surfing is one of the big sports now. Also, I'm not good friends, but I'm friends with Rob Kelly. He's sponsored by Billabong. He gets to go to Hawaii every year and live in this beachfront house.
Wow.
Where they just surf all day. And the same thing with esports. There are companies who pay these people to live in their homes and actually train every day. Meals are paid for, everything's paid for, and if you're good enough at it, I guess you can make a living at it.
Certainly can. Dave Weinberg with us, talking a little bit about all the things that are going on in and around the Atlantic City area on this Saturday, plus something that took place last weekend, and we teed it up, and we'll close with that. Your reaction to the Wilder Fury fight, and I love how you started your column too. Your reward for babysitting. Hey, I can sit right here and watch this.
Yeah, thanks to my son for giving me a little bit of a present for battling my grandkids for a few hours. And I guess people know if you have a 4-year-old and an almost 2-year-old, they definitely keep you going for a while. And so yeah, even though I sat around with him and a bunch of his friends and watched the Wilder Fury fight, I was obviously surprised. I thought that I kind of wanted Wilder to win, but all credit to Fury for doing what he had to do to win the fight and dominate it. But I was more, as I mentioned, taken aback by Wilder's reaction to it. Instead of just doing the gentlemanly thing and congratulating Fury, he was the better man. He floated this ridiculous excuse about the costume that he wore into the ring was too heavy. It took his legs away, and he faulted his trainer Mark Breeden for throwing in the towel, which is an outrageous statement to make. I mean, Breeden could have saved his life, quite frankly. So yeah, I was really disappointed in the way Deontay responded to everything.
Yes, that maybe wasn't the classy way to respond to stuff, but in this day and age, comments like that might get us a third fight, right?
Oh yeah, I mean there was a rematch clause anyway, and I expect Deontay to exercise that. The fight will probably be in the late summer or early fall, August or September. As we've often mentioned, it would be great if something like that could come to Boardwalk Hall. Speaking of Boardwalk Hall, and but the chances are probably slim, but you never know. I mean, if the CRDA and the various other entities, the Atlantic Sports Commission, maybe some other the casinos kind of decide to bond together and bring a big boxing event back to town. Who knows? Maybe it will be on the Boardwalk.
From your lips to God's ears, Dave Weinberg with us here on the Pete Thompson Show on 97.3 ESPN. Remember, read his Extra Points column on our website, 973ESPN.com. Follow him on Twitter at Dave Weinberg19. I hope I see you at that MAC tournament. I'm going to for sure get over there for a couple games, and I hope I get to see you as well, my friend.